Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Marvel and DC Retrospective Podcast. This is another episode of Midlife Crisis, the show where I talk about DC events in order. Because I'm currently reading The Flash, and as these events happen, I will be covering them. Most of them I'll be covering the tie-ins, really depends on what mood I'm in. We are currently covering Millennium, and this is the fifth and final part of the Millennium event. It's the final episode, so after this podcast episode, Millennium will be finished. We got a few tie-ins and 2 issues left of Millennium to cover. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first 2 tie-ins that we're going to be covering today are the Young All-Stars, the second tie-in, and Millennium issue 7. Now, the Young All-Stars tie-in, just like the last one, it doesn't really tie into Millennium very much at all, and the story is not that great. It's better than the last issue's story, but not great. And also a little bit confusing, because I originally thought that the Young All-Stars series took place in the present, and that the All-Star Squadron were dead, and that this was the next generation, because or they were really old and some of them were dead, because the All-Star Squadron are basically the Justice Society of America before they started calling themselves that, and the Young All-Stars are the next generation. But it turns out that Young All-Stars actually takes place in the past, back when the All-Star Squadron was still around. And I didn't know that, because the first issue does not give it away at all. And they make it seem like it's a surprise that Green Lantern is back, because he's supposed to be dead, so I just assumed it took place in the present, and that Green Lantern was supposed to be dead. But nope. And I'm talking about the Alan Scott version of Green Lantern, the one that doesn't have anything to do with the Guardians, or not really. But yeah, it takes place in the past. And some things actually made sense as soon as I discovered that. But let's get into it. So, we follow this Jamaican woman named Maria. She's not the Jamaican woman who is a new Guardian. She's not. It's not her. At first, you're supposed to believe that it is her, but it's not her. It's Maria. It's this woman called Maria. She goes for a swimming in a cove. She goes to swim in a cove where she comes across this weird dude with a scar on his eye. And, she's afraid of him at first. And he's like, hey, don't be afraid. I'm just swimming just like you. And she's like, oh, sorry. I always come to my cove to, have a bit of a swim. And he's like, your cove? And she's like, oh, sorry. I don't own this cove. This is just where I choose to swim. He's like, hey, let's go swim together. And so she swims with this stranger with blonde hair who just happens to be swimming in this cove. And then he's like, hey, why don't we get out? Sorry, I've got no pants on. So would you be able to turn around while I jump out of the water? And she's like, oh, sure. And she turns around and doesn't look at him. She gets out. He gets out. And then she's like, my name's Maria. I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe you're the same? And he's like, oh, I'm not worried, Maria, because you see, I happen to know that you won't tell anyone anything ever again. And it reveals that the guy that she's talking to is this villain called Baron Blitzkrieg. Now, Baron Blitzkrieg is basically DC's version of, the Red Skull, or Baron Strucker. He's a Nazi. But unlike them, he has, Superman's powers. Not all of them, but he has super strength, he has flight, and he has heat vision. And he literally calls it heat vision. He doesn't call it laser eyes, he says heat vision. He wears, a armor on, but the armor isn't what protects him. He's got, bulletproof skin and shit. So yeah, he reveals himself, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna kidnap you. Because we're evil. We're Nazis. And some of the soldiers go to grab her, and then Baron Blitzkrieg is like, let's just shoot her. You know? Like, I've got a far better idea than just taking her away. Let's just shoot her on the spot. And then Alan Scott comes in. He's like, don't even try it. And Alan Scott flies in and fights the bad guys. He blasts Baron Blitzkrieg away and then fights the Nazis. And then Baron Blitzkrieg uses like his heat vision against Alan Scott's ring, which burns his ring's energy down enough so that he can punch Alan real hard. Alan manages to get one final blast in on Blitzkrieg, which sends him flying into a rock, but Blitzkrieg just throws a wooden rifle at him and knocks Alan Scott out, because Alan Scott is weak to wood. That's part of his thing. So he literally just throws a rifle at him and knocks him out. It's ridiculous. He just hits him in the head and he's like, and just falls over. Baron Blitzkrieg is then like, if the Mighty Green Lantern came to find you, then that means you must be important for some reason. It's like, are you a spy, little Maria? And she's like, you get away from me, you Nazi pig. And Blitzkrieg just like slaps her. He's like, shut up, shut your mouth, slut. He's like, take them to the camp while we repair on the U-52, not to get mixed up with the New 52. It's a different thing. This isn't an initiative by DC. He plans on questioning her and then executing her. Both of them. Green Lantern and Maria. And so, we're left off with them taking Maria and Alan Scott away to question and execute them. Meanwhile, the other Young All-Stars, some of the members of the Young All-Stars, are in a jet heading to Jamaica because they heard that that's where Alan Scott has headed to, so they're heading there to go find him. In the last issue, there were these three members, Tsunami, Fox, and Dynamite. I won't tell you who they are because it doesn't matter. They went to the snowy mountains where the Eskimos are, where they fought Green Lantern because he was fighting against them. Like, he was being controlled by something, and he fought them, and they all got knocked out. But these members don't know that that's happened. And the members that we're currently dealing with at the moment of the Young All-Stars are Frenzy, who is a character, Neptune. Frenzy, from what I can tell, she's like just real fast and nimble. Neptune, who is exactly the same as Tsunami, except I think he can control fish while Tsunami cannot. Tsunami's just really good at swimming and maybe controls water. We didn't get to see if he could do that. While Neptune is literally just Aqualad. He is literally a carbon copy of Aqualad. Like, exactly the same. I don't know who came first. I'm guessing he came first, and so Aqualad is technically the copy. But yeah, Neptune is just Aqualad. And then we got the final one, whose name is An. And An is like, he has like super speed powers. Or like not even super speed, he's just faster than regular people. So they're talking to each other about what's going on. And then they hear like a noise coming from the back of the plane. So Fury goes to check it out. She sees someone running away and she grabs them and pulls their cape off. And they reveal themselves to be Tigress. Paula Brooks, Tigress. And this is what the first time where I was like a bit confused as like what this timeline was. Because they discover that, Paula Brooks is 18 at the moment. And as you know, in the comics, Paula Brooks is a much older woman. She's not old. She's just much older. She's old enough to have a teenage daughter in most continuities. And she's often depicted as being married to the Sportsmaster. But this version is 18 years old. So I was like, oh, is she younger post-crisis for a while? Or did they age her up? But no, this takes place in the past. So this is young Paula Brooks, who is just starting out as Tigress. So she holds the young All-Stars at crossbow point. She shoots Neptune in his toe webbing, but then not Appa. What was his name again? I'm already forgetting the names. Arn runs in and grabs her crossbow, and that's when she reveals herself. And she reveals that she just wants to join the Young All-Stars. She's a big fan of Paul Kirk, who is the Manhunter. By the way, he's here too. They're with him. If you want to learn more about Paul Kirk, I talk about him in earlier episodes of this podcast, of this Millennium podcast. So you can go back and listen to those. I'm pretty sure I explain it in the other Young All-Stars tie-in that I explained. But yeah, she explains that she wants to join the Young All-Stars because she's a massive fan of Paul Kirk. Like, she has a massive crush on him. She was taught jujitsu, and like she talks about how like she trained with her Japanese gardener to learn how to use jujitsu and stuff. She trained herself to shoot a bow and arrow and crossbow and shit like that. And so she tags along with the Young All-Stars to go to Jamaica. They land on the Jamaican island, and they meet a priest who tells them that his daughter, Maria, is in trouble, and that they need to go and find her. Or I don't know if she's his daughter. I think that they're just like... She's a friend. Oh no, she's a young girl from the orphanage that he runs. So technically, he's kind of like a adopted daughter of hers, because he obviously plays the role of her father, because he owns the orphanage, but he's not her father. But yeah, he says that Maria's gone missing, and so they need to go search for her because he believes that like she's in trouble. So they head off to the cove that she was last seen in. And meanwhile, Baron Blitzkrieg and his crew are like rowing a boat back to their ship with Green Lantern and Maria on it. And like they ask Maria again, like, who is she and like why was she in the cove? And she was just like, I was just swimming with my friends, the dolphins. And he's like, oh, maybe your dolphin friends can come save you then. And then that literally happens. The dolphins upturn the rowboat. Like, they knock it over. Baron Blitzkrieg is like, whoa, what the heck? Like, why are the dolphins attacking the rowboat? And it turns out that it is Neptune. He's taken control. Like, he orders the dolphins to, he controls them, to help them. And one of these guys tries to shoot the dolphins. He's like, I'll kill the dolphins too. And then Neptune orders the dolphin to like steal his gun. And then the dolphin starts laughing at him, which is kind of funny. And then the Young All-Stars just like beat up a bunch of Nazis. They start fighting the Nazis. Half of them are on the boat where Green Lantern is. And so, like, they're fighting those Nazis, and then the other ones are fighting Nazis in, like, the jungle. And then Baron Blitzkrieg comes in, and he's like, alright, I've got to put an end to this. And so he flies in, and he knocks the shit out of Arn, and, like, beats the shit out of him to the point where blood is, like, splattering all over his face. But then Arn manages to punch off Blitzkrieg's helmet, which really overthrows him and really angers him. But then Green Lantern comes in and decides to attack Blitzkrieg, and he's like, there's nowhere to go, Blitzkrieg. Like, you're gonna lose. Like, what do you think you're gonna do now? And Blitzkrieg is like, I'm gonna use my heat vision to blow up the boat from underneath us. And he does that. He shoots the boat with his heat vision, blows it up, but Green Lantern manages to get everyone to safety, including himself, by using his powers. And Blitzkrieg is assumed to have died in the explosion, having killed himself. And so Maria is safe, and she reunites with the priest, and he asks Green Lantern why he was even here and why he was looking for Maria. And Green Lantern's like, I don't know why I'm here. I've forgotten. Like, I don't know. And so as the Young All-Stars decide to head back to the All-Star Squadron's base, the priest stops on for a second and gives him something. He's like, I got something important for you. You know, you can look at it later. And An's like, oh, okay. Thanks, Father. And so Green Lantern and the Young All-Stars leave, and they take all the Nazis away to put them in prison. They head back to the All-Star Squadron's base, where they all reunite with the Green Lantern. And they talk about the fact that, like, Green Lantern is probably going to have to go to, like, he's going to answer for what he did to, like, the Japanese, like, when he was helping the Japanese and stuff, and, like, the Nazis, and that he's going to have to answer for that. And Green Lantern's like, you're right. And so Alan takes off his ring, and he's like, you can have the ring from now on, so that there's no chance of me ever going bad again. You know, I don't deserve to wear this ring right now. And as he takes it off, the ring starts talking, and it's the green flame that's within the ring. It's like this magical flame. And he's like, I am the green flame. I was the one that was controlling Green Lantern and making him do this. Alan Scott recalls so little of his recent actions because I was guiding his hand toward an end which even I but partly comprehend. And so the ring basically says that it knew that, like, and this is where the big reveal is, all those people that they were saving, like Maria and the Eskimos and the Japanese people, they were the fathers and mothers of the New Guardians. So Maria is the mother of Celia Winward, and Katie Kalmaku is the mother of Thomas Kalmaku, etc., etc. So the ring was tasked with finding these people and keeping them safe so the New Guardians could be born in the future. And that's all it has to tie in with Millennium. And so they're all like, oh my god, like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. That's really confusing. And, yeah. That's it. Like, Tigress joins the Young All-Stars, and Arn discovers that the thing that was given to him was a journal from his father because he's got father issues. Because his dad died, and he's trying to find out more about his dad. So yeah, he got the journal from his dad, and that's it. That's the tie-in. That's literally, like, they just congratulate each other, and, like, they congratulate Tigress for joining, and all that shit. It doesn't matter. That's it. It's the end of the tie-in. Not terrible, not great, just bang in the middle. Like, I just don't care. Like, it's just one of those things where I don't care. It has nothing to do with Millennium, really, until the very end. And the story is okay. You know, seeing Baron Blitzkrieg is fun. Not that he's a very well-known villain outside of, like, I mean, the most notoriety he ever got was he was in a season of Arrow as a flashback villain. Season 4, but he's a completely different character in that show. But yeah, enough about Young All-Stars. Let's talk about Millennium issue 7, which is a much better thing for me to talk about, because there's a lot more that I could actually talk about. And by that I mean, there still isn't a lot to talk about, because not a lot happens in this issue. I mean, a lot happens, but, like, there's a lot of action, so a lot of the issue is them fighting, but it's still much more interesting than what we just read in Young All-Stars. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to mention, Young All-Stars was, I forgot to mention to credit the writers and artists of Young All-Stars, which I like to do. Where is it? Yeah, Young All-Stars was written by Roy and Dan Thomas, with art by Brian Murray and Malcolm Jones III. Sorry about that, just had to make sure I gave credit where credit is due. But yeah, on to Millennium Week 7. Obviously, it's written by Steve Englehart and Joe Staton. They've been writing the whole thing. So, we start off where the last issue left off, or the last tie-ins left off. Superman's crew, look like Superman, Martian Manhunter, Harbinger, Green Lantern, Arisia, Hawkgirl, Hawkwoman, like Hawkgirl, Hawkman, Captain Atom, Firestorm, Drick from Crick. Like they're all in space with Dr. Fate, and they discovered that Dr. Fate can't take them back to Earth. And they're like, why can't you take us back to Earth? Like, what's wrong? Like, why can't you get back to Earth? That's when this Dr. Fate reveals that he is not the all-powerful Dr. Fate that they knew in the past. He is a new Dr. Fate, and therefore he just isn't as powerful. And so he can't travel all the way to Earth. It's too far for him to travel to. He needs to get closer to the old Dr. Fate before, like, Kent Nelson, before he can teleport them to Earth. Because the closer he is to Kent Nelson, the more power he has. And so the heroes decide that they're just going to have to fly towards Earth and get close enough so that Fate can transport them there. So that's what they plan on doing. They plan on just flying through space and getting close enough to Earth that Dr. Fate can just teleport them to where the other heroes are, because they all want to reunite with, like, Batman and Blue Beetle and all them. So that's what they do. Harbinger is very insistent on getting back to Earth and actually doing something herself, because she's like, I was born on Earth and I spent 20 years monitoring Earth, but I barely spent any time on it, and I feel like it's not over, because these heroes in space think that it's all over because they've destroyed the Manhunter's planet. Harbinger's like, I can sense it's not over. I have this connection with Earth now that is suddenly coming up, but I have this psychic connection with Earth itself, and I can sense that it's still in danger. So I'm gonna head back to Earth. I gotta help them. Like, I gotta help my world that I was born in. And she disappears. She teleports away, and Arisia's like, nobody told me Harbinger could do that. And Dr. Fate is like, the Millennium is a time of evolution for many, Arisia. And so Superman's like, alright, let's believe her, people. Let's go. Like, come on. Like, I believe her, so let's go. The Earth's in danger. We gotta go save it. Meanwhile, Batman's crew, Blue Beetle, Batman, Mr. Miracle, Infinity Inc., Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, Aquaman, Aqualad, like, they're all, the whole gang is Kilowog. They're all in the Sunspore from the last issue and the Blue Beetle tie-in, which is this device that can burrow through the Earth. They're inside it because they discovered that the Manhunter base is inside the core of the Earth, and so they're currently making their way through to the core of the Earth. You know, they go through the oceans. They're talking about, like, what they're going to do once they get to the Manhunter's base. They're preparing for it. And Mr. Bones, who is this member of the Infinity Inc., is like, how do we know, like, why are we assuming that this is the last amount of Manhunters? Like, this is where the last Manhunters are. Like, we've dealt with Manhunters in the swamp, we've dealt with Manhunters beyond the sun. Like, who says that these are the last ones? And Batman is like, it's only logical that these are the last ones left, because we've weakened their cult, and, like, we've taken care of, like, a lot of, like, these guys, and so it's only logical that, like, there might be a few remaining in the world, but, like, Brainwave has already told us that there aren't very many left, and so it's assumed that, like, this is where they are. So once we take care of this base in the core, that should be it. That should be all of them. So they continue melting through the core of the Earth, and eventually they get to where the Manhunter's base is. They get to the part of the core where it's not hot anymore, where people can walk around and shit. Flash, who is also there, you don't see him in any... Oh, you see him in, like, one shot. But the Flash is there too, and so is Wonder Woman and Green Arrow. It's a lot of people. Flash is like, Wally runs around, because it's Wally West. He runs around and like eventually finds a hatch just by running around. He's like, "Hey, I ran around enough that I found the entrance hatch." And then this character called Nuke, who has like super strength, pulls open the hatch, allowing them to enter. And before they're about to enter, Harbinger shows up. She's like, "I'm here," and Nuke's like, "How'd you get here?" And Harbinger's like, "I was with the others, Superman." And stuff, and they're all like, "Oh, did they win?" And she's like, "Yeah, they won. And they're gonna be on their way. I just knew I had to be here, and so I'm here. You know, my real parents are dead, but the way the Monitor raised me, he was my father, and my mother, his love was this world. So I've come to help save it." And so they jump in through the hatch to enter the Manhunter's base to take down the Manhunters. Meanwhile, the New Guardians are learning Tai Chi, and they finish their training. The Guardians are like, the Guardian is like, "You are more than we ever could have imagined. Like, we're so proud of you and how you have completed your training. Like, this is awesome." Thomas Kalmaku is still having family issues because his wife hates the fact that he's becoming a hero, like a superhero. She's like, "I married a normal man. You're not a normal man anymore, Thomas. You're not Thomas Kalmaku. Thomas Kalmaku was a normal man, and you're not him." So she runs away. She's like, "Stupid, filthy superhero." Tom's just like, "Wait." So Harbinger and Batman and that, they all land inside the Manhunter's base, and they find a room with like all the Manhunters in it. You got like Booster Gold, Pan is there as well because they're working with the Manhunters because Booster Gold turned on everyone and joined them. And they're listening in on what the Manhunters are talking about, which is just the same thing. That they're going to destroy Earth now. They were originally going to take over Earth, but now that there's only so many of them left, they've decided to destroy it. So they've built a big device that is an explosive. It's kind of a last resort. Just destroy the Earth. And then they've got satellites that they can get into and escape in case they need to get away. The heroes get attacked by Manhunters. They get found by them, and so they start fighting the Manhunters. The Manhunter that looks like Pan appears and goads Wonder Woman on to fight, and Wonder Woman's like, "This one's mine. You know, Zeus sent me to stop this Manhunter, so I will fight him." So Wonder Woman fights Pan. And Pan is like goading her and saying like, "You're gonna have to, like, the only way you can stop me is by killing me, and I know that you don't kill people because you're a stupid woman." And he's like being very misogynistic and stuff. And Wonder Woman's like, "I can stop you with my lasso of truth." And Pan is like, "Yeah, but the power of your lasso is too strong, and eventually it's going to destroy, like, it's going to kill me. Like, how are you going to be able to deal with killing me?" And Wonder Woman is like, "I don't care. Like, I'll still be able to, like, obviously I care about killing you, but I'm still intent on restraining you with the lasso of truth." And she, like, pulls really hard on the lasso, and it splits Pan in half. It kills him. But because he's a Manhunter and he's an android, Jade is like, "Don't worry, like, he's an android. It's fine. It's not the same thing." And Wonder Woman is like, "What have I done? I killed him." But she'll be fine because, you know, he was just a robot, you know. And so the other characters continue fighting the Manhunters and, like, the Green Lanterns that are here, like Guy Gardner and Kilowog and stuff, attack the satellites and destroy the satellites so that the Manhunters can't get away. And so, they kind of go for a last resort where the Grandmaster is like, "The bomb! turn it on. Like, we can't get away anymore, so turn on the bomb and we'll go in a blaze of glory. We'll kill all of the heroes and ourselves. So the Manhunters go straight for the bomb to try and turn it on. And, you know, the heroes are trying to stop them. And then a Manhunter gets to the button to turn the bomb on, and he's about to press it, and then a hand comes out and stops him, and it's Booster Gold. He's like, you forgot, no man escapes the Manhunters, and I'm a Manhunter, right? And they're like, Gold, you traitor! Ah, he's betraying us just like he betrayed the heroes. And Booster Gold is like, no, I never betrayed them. This was my plan the whole time. I was always on their side. But the heroes don't want to hear any of it. You know, like, you stupid traitor, Booster. Like, how could you betray us? Like, we don't believe you. Booster's like, come on, guys. Like, this whole time I was always on your side. I just played with the Manhunters to, like, you know, catch them off guard. Blue Beetle's like, well, you can say that to Wonder Woman when she has the lasso of truth around you to see if you're actually telling the truth. Also, the Harley Quinn, not that Harley Quinn, a different Harley Quinn, who was revealed to be a Manhunter in a past issue, she gets away. She, like, pulls off a Manhunter mask and gets away. But, yeah, the heroes beat all the Manhunters, and then take Booster Gold away for questioning. And then Superman and Firestorm and that crew of heroes burst through the ceiling and reunite with the other heroes. And that's when the Guardian and that's when Harupa and is it Nadira show up to tell them to come to the Guardians and, like, reunite with them. And also, she's really old for some reason now. That lady Zamaron, she's drawn as, like, really old here. Maybe she got really old training the Guardians because they were training them for a really long time. And so the Guardian and her just got really old because they've been training these Immortals for years. I think that's what's supposed to be. They don't really tell you that, but yeah, they've aged a lot. So they're, like, really frail now. So the heroes all head back to the Green Lantern Citadel to reunite with the new Guardians. And the Guardians tell the new Guardians that before they give them their powers, they want the new Guardians to explore the world and see it for all it is in its glory, the world that they're going to be protecting. And once they've come to terms with how great the world is, then they'll get their powers. And then Booster Gold kidnaps Xiang, one of the new Guardians, and is like, I'm gonna show Xiang just how rotten the world really is. And everyone's just like, no! And that's where the issue ends. Literally ends like that. The heroes all get to the Green Lantern Citadel, and then Booster Gold just grabs Xiang and is like, see ya, I'm gonna go fly off with her. Where is he going? I guess we'll find out in the Booster Gold tie-in. This is honestly, like, probably the worst ending of a Millennium issue. It tries to, I guess, be a cliffhanger, but it doesn't feel like a cliffhanger because it's just so fucking random. Where Booster Gold's just like, bye, adios, I'm just gonna steal this woman. Like, Superman's right fucking there. Can't he just, like, plow him? Just like, bam, gone. Like, in an instant, he'd just, like, take Booster down. I guess we'll find out if that happens. But yeah, that was Millennium issue 7. Much better than the Young All-Stars tie-in. I enjoyed it. Like, it was good. It was fun seeing, like, like, all the heroes fighting the Manhunters, and, you know, seeing Booster Gold betray the Manhunters was fun, but it seems like he's betraying the heroes again. Like, Booster Gold flip-flopping more than a fish. But yeah, that's it for Millennium issue 7, and that means there's only one more issue of Millennium, and then we're done with the story. But until we get to Millennium issue 8, we gotta go through some more tie-ins. The last tie-ins of the event. and I hope they're the most important ones because they're leading up to the final issue. It seems so. Just looking at like Adventures of Superman, which the next time we're going to talk about, seems to be following some of the new Guardians as they explore the Earth and take it in, you know. So yeah, the next tie-in that we're going to be covering is The Adventures of Superman, written by John Byrne and Jerry Ordway. And with art by John Byrne as well. So it's written by John Byrne and Jerry Ordway, and then John Byrne also does the art of it as well. So the Adventures of Superman tie-in, the second one, this one's interesting because unlike the last one, this one, like, Superman isn't even really the main character. He is in, like, narrate, like, in terms of, like, events that happen, but this whole issue takes place from the points of view of Lois Lane, who narrates most of this issue, and Lex Luthor, who narrates the other half of this issue. So it's narrated by Lex Luthor and Lois Lane at the same time, and I'll explain why. So Celia Winwood, who is one of the new Guardians, she's the Jamaican British character. At the end of Millennium issue 7, I forgot to mention this, but she saw a limo in the distance and she was like, oh, a limo, that's interesting. I sense someone is in there that I should go talk to. Like, that's literally what happens. And so she walks off. Like, the end of Millennium issue 7 was literally just like, let's set up all the tie-ins. Booster Gold's gonna fly away with Xiang. Celia Winwood is gonna see a limo that she wants to go over to. So she goes to check out this limo, and meanwhile there's this guy waiting for a date, and it's being narrated by Lois Lane. And so she's talking about how she's going on a date with this guy who she later discovered was a hero. And you're thinking, oh my god, it's Clark Kent. It's not Clark Kent. Her and Clark are not dating at this time. She's kind of known as Superman's girlfriend at this point in time. It's a bit of a ribbing that people give her, but her and Clark are entirely platonic and they're just workmates. Work friends. Or they might not even be work friends, they just work together at this point. So she's going on a date with this other guy. And meanwhile, Celia is, she goes to the limo and she finds out that the owner of the limo is Lex Luthor. And Lex Luthor is like, hello, like, Celia, like, I know of you because I'm Lex Luthor and I know everything. I also know about the situation that we're currently in with the Manhunters, so I would love to get dinner with you and just talk to you and tell you something that I know that I want to talk to you about. Celia is like, I don't know, I know who you are, I know you're Lex Luthor, I know that you're a very untrustworthy person, like, I don't know how I feel. And Lex Luthor's just like, what's one dinner gonna do? Like, just come on, like, come to dinner. And after that, it's over. It's very important that I talk to you about this. And she eventually, through his nagging, she gives in. He kind of, like, forces her into the limo. He's essentially kidnapping her in a nice way. And they go off to dinner together. Lex Luthor straight up looks like... Like, this is clearly what, like, the Superman the Animated Series Lex Luthor was based on, because he looks exactly the same as how this Lex Luthor is drawn by John Byrne. Except the only difference is that this Lex Luthor's kind of fat compared to like how Lex Luthor is normally drawn now. He's got like a double chin. He kind of looks like the Fat Controller from, he's not even called the Fat Controller anymore, but they call him the Controller now from, Thomas the Tank Engine. That's what he looks like in this, at this point in time in DC history. Lois Lane goes on this date with this other guy we don't actually know his real name, and I think that adds to the narrative of, like, she's dating this guy who's a hero, but they never actually reveal his real name, because he's supposed to be an analogy of, like, Clark and Lois's relationship. But they go and watch a movie together, and Lex Luthor and Celia have dinner together, and Lex Luthor is like, I want to tell you a story about a supervillain. Because I'm Lex Luthor and I like going on long drabblings about things that I'm interested in. So let me tell you a supervillain story related to Superman. Because I want to make you think the way I do. And at the same time that he tells this story, Lois Lane is narrating her story with this other guy. And I'm going to cut things short because it's going to get a bit confusing, me explaining this. But, like, they're both telling parallels of the same story. So Lex Luthor is telling a fake story that it skews it more in his image, while Lois Lane is narrating what's actually going on at this point in time. So Lex Luthor talks about this villain called Combator, or Combator. And he talks about how, like, Combator kidnaps this little girl. Like, he attacks a whole crowd of people. He kidnaps the little girl in order to get the attention of Superman. He wants Superman to come and save this little girl because he wants to fight Superman. What's actually happening, that Lois is narrating, is that she was on a date with this guy and Combator attacked them in the cinema. And the guy that she's on a date with disappears during the ruckus, and Combator grabs her, not a little girl, grabs her and holds her hostage to try and get Superman's attention, because Combator knows that Lois Lane and Superman are connected. And so he thinks that if he holds Lois Lane hostage, Superman will come and save her. So it's kind of fun, like, seeing the parallels of this story, where in Lex Luthor's story, Superman comes to save this little girl, while in Lois Lane's rendition of the story, which is real, this character known as Gangbuster shows up, who is very clearly the guy that she was on a date with. But this Gangbuster guy shows up. He looks almost exactly like Combator, or Combator. It's really hard not to call him Combator. I think it's just Combator. He kind of looks like Daredevil, but without the horns. Like Daredevil's original costume with the yellow and red, but without, you take away the horns and you add some goggles, and that's what Gangbuster looks like. And Combator just looks like a regular guy in, like, golden armor. Like, think of the most generic golden armor that a supervillain can have, and that's what Combator looks like. So, Gangbuster shows up to save Lois Lane, and Superman shows up to save this girl in Lex Luthor's story. And the parallels are, like, Superman fights Combator in Lex's story, while Gangbuster fights Combator in Lois Lane's narration of the events. And in Lex Luthor's side of the story, when he's narrating how he believed Superman would fight Combator, he says it in a very opinionated way, and he kind of makes it out like Superman is trying to kill Combator, because that's what Lex Luthor thinks of Superman. It's kind of cool. I like it. I like how, like, Lex Luthor is kind of, like, demonizing Superman, where he's just like, and Superman, with this relentless hatred in his eyes, grabbed Combator by the throat and tried to strangle the life out of him, because that's what Superman would do. Or, like, Superman thrusts Combator into a wall and, like, hard enough to, like, try and shatter his spine, and, like, all these different descriptions to try and make Superman seem like he's some kind of monster. He's like, he threw the tire at Combator in an attempt to shatter his skull, and shit like that, which I love how Lex Luthor is trying to do that. Like, he's twisting the story to make it sound like Superman's evil. But yeah, so Gangbuster fights Combator, and eventually the fights have two different endings, obviously, depending on Lex Luthor's story, Lois Lane's story. Lex Luthor's story ends with Superman killing Combator, fatally shocking him. Obviously, a lot more happens in their fight, but it's mainly just like they fight. There's a big fight. At one point, they like throw a taxi at Combator, or like Superman throws a taxi at Combator, but what actually happens is that Gangbuster drives a taxi towards Combator and jumps out the door, and it hits him. And so these parallels between the story are kind of cool. But what happens is, in Lex Luthor's story, Superman, electrocutes Combator by pulling cables out of the ground, electrocuting him to death. While Gangbuster just uses like a taser to zap Combator, and then Combator falls over, but he falls on top of Gangbuster, and the weight of Combator falling on him causes Gangbuster's back to like snap, and like his spine breaks, and he loses all feeling in his legs, and Combator becomes a paraplegic. And then, according to Lex Luthor, Superman, after killing Combator, flies away. While in Lois Lane's story, she goes over to Gangbuster, and she finds him, and she takes off his helmet, realizes that he's the guy that she was on a date with, and he's like, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. And Lois Lane is like, I went on a date with a hero who sacrificed himself. Like, he sacrificed himself for Metropolis. He didn't die, but like his doctors say he's never going to walk again. He gave up his ability to walk to save me and to save Metropolis. And Celia is very like, I'm not sure if I believe your story, Luthor. Sounds like a bit of a tall tale. Like Luthor's like, believe what you want, but I'm just giving you what I believe are the facts of this story. You should be careful about Superman. And so, eventually, after, Lex Luthor and Celia just end their dinner date there, after he's told her the story, he heads back to his home, Luthor Building, I guess, Luthor Corp, and when he shows up there, Superman is in his office, and he's got Gangbuster's helmet. He's like, come in, Luthor, I've been waiting for you. And Lex Luthor's like, Superman, this is my private office, how dare you? And Superman's just like, save it, Luthor. Your lackey's on here to appreciate it. Brought you a message, Luthor. Lex Luthor's like, what message? Superman's like, throws Gangbuster's helmet at him. He's like, you're being unusually cryptic, Superman. The helmet means nothing to me. Superman's like, no? Like, it should. Should mean a great deal to you, Luthor. That helmet is part of the uniform of a hero, Luthor. Maybe that's a concept you have difficulty understanding. But while you played your mind games with Celia Windward, oh yes, Lex, I know all about that. This hero stood alone against your agent. I know Combator came from you, Luthor. I can smell it. And Lex is just like, I don't know what you mean, Superman. And I repeat myself, this helmet means nothing to me. And he throws it in a trash can. Superman and Lex is like, now leave, Superman, before I call my security team and have you arrested for trespassing. Superman's like, one last word, Luthor. Remember I said I know all about your dinner with Celia? She told us what you said. You presented a pretty You presented a pretty convincing argument for the shallowness of humankind, for all accounts. Unfortunately for your little scheme, the eyewitness reports of Gangbuster's battle with Combator present a much more compelling argument for the other side. I suggest you pay particular attention to Lois Lane's piece in the Planet. Good night, Lex. And he leaves Lex a bunch of newspapers with the story headlines. Lex is just like, blast it. He's right. I hadn't anticipated some interloper surviving a battle with Combator long enough for his bio-engine energizing to burn him out. So he confirms that, like, the reason why Combato just fell over from the electrics is because, like, his energy ran out. So he stopped fighting and was beaten. And then he pulls Gangbuster's helmet out of the trash and he's like, "Gangbuster," Superman said. "I know that name. Before this day is out, I'll know more. Much, much more." And he, like, holds the helmet in front of him and he's like, "Yes." And that's where the Adventures of Superman tie-in ends. I like that tie-in. It's good. I liked it. It was an interesting form of storytelling of having these two stories going on at the same time, like two different points of view of the same story, like a fake version and the real events. And I really love that final encounter with, like, I feel like every time, love or hate John Byrne's Superman, but you gotta admit that, like, the relationship that he had built between Lex and Superman is the iconic one. Of, like, Superman just showing up at Lex's building and just being like, "Hey, Lex, I know what you did, you piece of shit, and I'm just here to say, stop it." And give him a slap on the wrist. Like, John Byrne, like, created the like, what that would be, like, what their relationship would be from then going forward, you know? And then just the conversations between them, the interactions, it's always good, and I really enjoy it. But enough about that tie-in, because we got another tie-in to talk about. We got Booster Gold, the second tie-in, written by Dan Jurgens, with art by Dan Jurgens, creator of Booster Gold, and co-creator of the Justice League International. So this tie-in continues right after Millennium issue 7, where Booster took, is her name Jiang? I think that's what her name was, right? So I'm just going a little bit forward just to figure out what her name was. She's one of the new Guardians. They mentioned her... Yeah, Jiang. I was right. I thought it was Jiang. So Brewster took Jiang from the Green Lantern Corps Citadel, and he's like, "I'm going to show Jiang how shitty the world really is." And where he takes her is his mansion. He's like, "This mansion was booby-trapped by the Manhunters, and it turned against me. So it's really shitty, and it reminds me of everything that's wrong with my life. So I'm going to destroy it. Like, I hate this place." And so Booster Gold, like, destroys his own mansion. And Skeets is like, "Booster, what in the world are you doing?" And Booster's just like, "Simple, Skeets. From now on, Booster Gold no longer exists." And he shuts off Skeets. He's like, "Yeah, sorry I had to deactivate you, but it's over, you know. Despite everything I've done, the world still considers me to be a villain and a traitor. So I'm just gonna stop being Booster Gold. Because the world doesn't like Booster Gold, so Booster Gold doesn't exist anymore." And he, like, takes off his armor and he gets rid of it. And he puts on regular clothes. He's like, "I'm not Booster anymore. Now I'm just Michael." And Trixie finds him. Trixie is, like, Booster Gold's, like, friend, maybe love interest. They never really actually get that far. But she's, like, one of his like, only friend left in Metropolis. And she comes and realizes that he's taken his armor off. It's like, "No, you can't. You can't just because..." And Booster's just like, "Trix, it's over. It's finished." And it turns out that Trix is actually telling this to the Justice League International, this encounter that she had with Booster and Jiang. She mentions that Booster just grabbed Jiang and he flew off. Without his armor, he doesn't have most of his powers, but he still has the Legion ring that allows him to fly, so he's still able to fly. But yeah, she explains to the JLI, and she asks, like, Martian Manhunter why she's looking for Booster Gold, like, when they probably think he's a traitor. And Martian Manhunter is like, "We don't think he's a traitor, Trixie. Like, Harbinger came and explained everything to us, and she told me that Booster Gold is a chosen representative. Like, he is crucial to us stopping the Manhunters, and him remaining in this time is crucial to his survival in the future. So we must find him and stop him from traveling back to the future, because they deduced the fact that, like, since he's given up being Booster Gold, chances are Michael's going to want to go back to the future where he isn't as hated. You know? So Martian Manhunter decides to head back to the JLI so that they can go search for Booster Gold. And meanwhile, Michael and Jiang head to Metropolis so that he can just show her around and show her how cool Metropolis is. She's like, I'm starting to see why you like this place. Like, it's cool. Like, I like how bustling it is. I like all the people. And Michael's just like, well, you haven't seen anything yet unless you've never witnessed fast food before. So let's go to Burger Queen instead of Burger King and get something to eat. And so they go to Burger Queen, and Booster's like, alright, I'll go order something. And as he goes to order something, he gets tapped on the back by someone, and they straight up suck him in the face. They're like, hey, you're that Booster Gold guy. I recognize you. You were on TV, you fucking traitor. And just punches him in the face. He's like, boy, is that who I think it is? And so Booster starts getting surrounded by a bunch of people. He's like, whoa, calm down, guys. Like, you don't want to do this. Like, I just, I want to have something to eat. That's all I'm doing. And he straight up picks up this guy and threatens him. He's like, okay, guys, you want in on this action? Take your shots now. Otherwise, stay put. And they're all kind of like, whoa, no way I'm getting involved in this. One guy there has, like, a Superman shirt on. He's like, you mean you even betrayed Superman, my favorite hero? And so Boosters is like, good. You two win the Good Citizen Awards of the month. And so Michael and Jiang decide to leave Burger Queen. And Michael's just like, I can't even be in Metropolis anymore because everyone hates me. So I'm going to leave Metropolis. She's like, how are you going to do that? I'm going to go get my plane. Like, I have a plane. Let's go. So they head off to Metropolis International Airport. And Michael gets stopped by a security guard. He's like, hey, yo, what are you doing? Michael's like, I'm getting my plane. He's like, no, you ain't. Booster Gold International sold the plane to Lex Luthor. So he owns it. It was sold like 3 weeks ago. Booster's like, damn it, Davis must have done it. That means I gotta take matters into my own hands. And he swift kicks this cop and goes and finds the plane, which now has LexCorp on it. And he's like, wow, LexCorp got to work real quick. Like, getting my plane. And so they steal the plane. Booster's just like, you know what? He's an evil business dick. So I'm going to steal this plane because he deserves it. And it's not long. Like, Booster also, like, he plans on going and visiting Rip Hunter in his plane because he wants to go back to the future. So he starts to make his way there, but a LexCorp chase jet catches up to them, and they're like, whoa, that was fast. Like, how do they even know where we were? And the LexCorp chase jet blasts them out of the sky, and Michael and Jiang crash into a mountain and seemingly die in an explosion. They're like, oh shit. Ah! And meanwhile, the Bug, which is Blue Beetle's ship, is searching around Metropolis looking for Booster. And Ted is like, I used Ted Gord Industries technology to bring Skeets back online, and Skeets can tell us where Booster is. Like, he knows where Booster is. Because, he's a part of Booster, I guess, or like he just has a lock on Booster at all times. So he's gonna help us find him. Martian Manhunter's like, cool. I hope we find him because we need to stop him from leaving. And so Booster and Jiang manage to get out of the plane explosion in time thanks to Booster's flying powers. So Michael takes her to Rip Hunter, and he asks Rip Hunter to send him to the future. He's like, hey, can you send me to the year 2480? And Rip's just like, that's further than the year that you live, you know, and then Booster's like, yeah, but, like, everyone hates me in 2462, so, I'm sure, like, in the 80s, they'll probably be over me being a criminal, you know? And Rip's like, I'm sorry, like, the last time we used a time machine, it, like, broke it, and so it's gonna be a long time before we ever figure out how to, like, time travel again, so I won't be able to send you to the future. Booster's just like, I see. Things are a screwed up mess here, that's why. And Zhang tries to talk Michael into not giving up. She's like, you're a hero, like, you can be a hero. You've proven to me that you can be a hero, that you're a good guy. And Michael's just like, nah, this isn't for me. And then Martian Manhunter is just like, don't be too sure of that, Booster. And he shows up and he's like, we have chose you at last, Booster. It's time for us to speak and find a solution to our conflict. And Booster's just like, get the fuck out of here. You're the last people I want to see. Like, you think I'm a traitor? And Martian Manhunter's like, we never thought you were a traitor. And he's like, are you sure? Because the way you treated me says otherwise. The way you've always treated me. How I've always been, like, lower than all of you. Not as low as you treat Guy Gardner, but, like, just above him. You know, I'm the one who gets treated the worst in the JLI. You know, you're better off without me. Especially because you think I'm some kind of jerk. Piss off. And he, like, storms off. And Black Canary's just like, that's enough. We've come here to mend fences. You know, we don't care about what you've done in the past. We just know that you belong on the JLI. You know, the JLI look out for our own. Blue Beetle's like... So, like, Black Canary's like, so if you kindly calm down... And Booster's just like, calm down? My entire life has fallen apart. And you expect me to calm down? And Blue Beetle's just like, oh, so the big superhero has a couple of problems, huh? Well, big deal. You know what I see here? I see an immature kid who's found out that life isn't all a party. And rather than face up to it, he's decided to run away. Newsflash. We're here to stop you from doing that. Booster, there is a place for you in the Justice League. You're a member of the Justice League. Take care, and a member of the... You're a member, and the League takes care of its own. Since you'll need a place to live, you can just hang out at the JLI embassy for a bit. Martian Manhunter's like, the Beetle speaks the truth, Booster. And as an added enticement, we've brought you this. And he pulls out Booster's costume. And Michael grabs it. And Skeets is like, your future seems clear, Booster. That uniform is your destiny. And Michael's like, maybe it is, Skeets. Maybe it is at that. And so Michael puts the costume on and he becomes Booster Gold again. And he heads off to find Trixie, who is currently working out in her apartment. She's got a couple of cats. There's a bit of a problematic moment for Booster, where the first thing he does is he just straight up looks at Trixie's ass as she's doing a yoga pose. He's like, oh, nice you. She's like, wow, you're Booster Gold again, are you? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, so I guess you're going back to protecting Metropolis, right? And Booster's like, not exactly. I'm leaving Metropolis. She's like, why? And he's like, because it's not the right place for me. I gotta find a new place. She's like, so you are giving up? And he's like, not giving up. Just starting over. I need to find a place where I belong. And she like and he's like, I'm gonna miss you. They're like, this is probably the last time we're gonna see each other for a while. And she like gives him a hug. She's like, what's next for you then? He's like, first, I'm going to find a place I want to be. And then that's it. The tie-in ends there. And a new chapter in Booster Gold's career begins. And I think this is the turning point for Booster Gold's character. he's been going through this character development, and I think this is the turning point until DC decides that they want to undo all of that character development, which I don't think they do for a long time. Like, I don't even know if New 52 undoes everything, because... Wait, no, I feel like I remember people saying New 52 ruined Booster Gold's character, even though... Or maybe Booster Gold was one of the few things in New 52 that people still liked. Because I'm pretty sure he's the same Booster in that. Like, they didn't reboot him. He's one of the characters that was safe from the timeline being reset, because he lives out of time. He wasn't affected by Flashpoint or anything. But yeah, that was the Booster Gold tie-in. I really enjoyed it. I think it's really good. I think it does a great job at, like, going deeper into Booster Gold as a character, you know, and Michael. He's one of those few characters where, like, not a lot of people know his real name, like, within the comic book fan community and stuff. Like, a lot of people don't know what his real name is because he is Booster Gold. Like, he wears the costume all the time, and, like, he's just a superhero 24/7. So it's very easy to forget who he is. So to get to see him in his regular civilian clothes, giving up the title, and kind of figuring out what he wants and what kind of person he is very interesting and very enjoyable to read. And I enjoy seeing Booster Gold's development just in this event alone. He went through a whole character arc. And out of all the characters, this event has definitely affected him the most in terms of, like, his story. Like, if you're going to read Booster Gold, I highly recommend reading, like, all of Millennium plus his tie-ins, because they're very important to his character arc. But enough about Booster Gold, because the next tie-in that we're going to be covering is the Green Lantern Corps' second tie-in, which is Green Lantern Corps issue 221. Written by Steve Englehart, with art by Joe Staton, I think? Yeah, with art by Joe Staton. Same writer and artist who do Millennium, so you know that the Green Lantern Corps issues are going to tie the most into Millennium, because they're written and drawn by the same guys that are doing Millennium. Right, so the Green Lantern Corps tie-in continues after Millennium issue 7, where the Green Lantern Corps, and I'm talking about, like, the little team consisting of Hal Jordan, Kat Matui, John Stewart, Kilowog and Aricia, and Drick from Crick. And usually like, Salak and Chip are here as well, but they're off doing their own thing on, like, their own planets. So that's why they're not here at the moment. So the Green Lantern Corps grabs a couple of the new Guardians. We got Takeo, we got Gregorio, we've got who is the guy from Peru, we've got Floronic Man, and we got Thomas Kamaku. And so they decide to head off and show them different parts of the world, and they each decide to, like, take a different person. Like, they split up into groups and take a different person. So Kilowog and Aricia take Gregorio to the moon to see Sinestro, because Gregorio wants to go and see Sinestro. Takeo goes with John Stewart and Kat Matui, and because he just wants to look at Green Lantern stuff, and Floronic Man goes with Hal Jordan because he wants to meet Hal Jordan's, like, family, or, like, he wants to see what America looks like. Like, he just wants to see America. And so Hal's just like, alright, I'll just take you to suburban, like, I'll take you to meet my family, but you gotta promise to behave. Thomas is gonna, like, they obviously want Thomas to come with them and go somewhere, but Thomas is like, I gotta stay behind and stay with my family because my relationship with my family is already straining, so could you please leave me here? And Hal is like, alright, fine, like, if that's what you want, you can stay at the Green Lantern Citadel. And so they leave Thomas at the Citadel, and then leave everyone else. So Aricia, Kilowog, and Gregorio go to see Sinestro, who is currently being held on the moon. And as we know in the last issue of Green Lantern Corps, Kilowog almost killed Sinestro, but then decided not to. And when he goes and sees Sinestro, he's like, "Oh, you motherfucker! Like, I'm this close. Like, you're lucky I'm even constrained right now because, like, I would fucking kill you right now. Like, I really want to, but Aricia doesn't want me to. And Kilowog is secretly in love with Aricia, which is why he is listening to her. I don't know how old Kilowog is supposed to be, but Aricia is supposed to be like 16, or she is like, or like whatever alien years is. Like, she's 16 in human years. And I'm guessing Kilowog has to be in, like, at least his late 30s. Either that or he's, like, he looks way older than his age is. But he always came across as kind of, like, the dad of, like, the Green Lanterns. Even though Hal Jordan is also quite old. Like, he and Hal kind of, like, play, like, the kind of, like, dad roles to, like, all of the younger Green Lanterns, you know? That's what I always thought. I always thought Kilowog was, like, one of the older ones. So it would be a bit problematic if he's in love with Aricia, who is canonically around 16 years old at this point. But yeah, they go and see Sinestro, and they hang out with Sinestro, who is just being held on the moon. And Hal Jordan takes Floronic Man, and Drick's there too. So Hal and Drick and Floronic Man go to Hal's... they go to Jack's house. Jack is one of Hal's brothers. He's got two brothers. He's got Jack Jordan and Jim Jordan. And there's this whole thing with Jim Jordan where, like, because I've been reading Green Lantern, there's this whole thing where, like, people think Jim Jordan's wife thinks that he's Green Lantern. And it's funny because, like, Hal is Green Lantern. But then she's always like, there's no way Hal could be Green Lantern. He looks nothing like him, but he looks like you. And it was always kind of like a parallel of like... It was like a parody of, like, Clark Kent, Superman, and Lois Lane kind of situation. It was like a Green Lantern version of that. Which I think was on purpose. This issue of Green Lantern would actually be retconned eventually with Emerald Dawn. Because Emerald Dawn, which I think came out in 1990 or 1989, was a reboot of Hal Jordan's origin. And in that reboot... when Hal became Green Lantern, one of the first things he did was he went to his brother Jim. I think it was Jim. It wasn't Jack, it was Jim. He went to his brother Jim and revealed that he was Green Lantern. He went to him as Green Lantern and was like, "Hey Jim, it's me, Hal. I'm this superhero called Green Lantern. I got powers now." And Jim was like, "What the fuck?" But yeah, But obviously Hal at this point in this issue says that Jim and Jack don't know that he's Green Lantern. So obviously that's going to get retconned, or like... But this is supposed to take place after Crisis on Infinite Earths, which means the Emerald Dawn origin is supposed to be canon at this moment. So it's like just DC kind of being all over the place with their continuity. Like, you would think they would have planned out Emerald Dawn at this point, because this is 1987 or 88. And Emerald Dawn was coming out in like a year or two. So you'd think they would have already known about it and were planning it. But nope, apparently Emerald Dawn must have been a last minute thing, because Steve Englehart didn't know that Jim canonically at this point should know that Hal is Green Lantern. But enough about that. While they're at Jack's house, some shit starts going down. A tornado appears out of nowhere, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, why is there a tornado appearing in the suburban areas? Like, that makes no sense. But Hal stops it with the help of Drake. And then, meanwhile, Jon Stewart and Kat Matui go with Takeo to meet Jon's family. And I feel like this is the first time we ever meet Jon's mum. or like any members of his family. And John and Katma, I think, are married at this point. So like his mum's like, "Oh, Katma, it's lovely to see you, dear." And like they just have a nice time with John's mum. But then all of a sudden, a massive earthquake starts, and everything outside just starts falling apart. And so John and Katma are like, "Ah, shit, we gotta go out and help everyone." And so they leave and use their Green Lantern powers to stop these buildings from falling apart, which they succeed in doing because they're Green Lanterns and they're very overpowered. Meanwhile, Gregorio, back on the moon, said that he had enough of like talking to Sinestro. Like he was getting sick of it because Sinestro is an asshole. Because he's all like, "Oh, like, good to see you again, Kilowog. You couldn't kill me last time. Are you going to kill me this time? Oh no, because you're a big baby. Wah wah." And so Gregorio's like, "Can I just go see like a baseball game?" And so they decide to go to a baseball stadium, and when they get there, fire starts raining from the sky. And so in order to protect Gregorio, Arisia creates like a an umbrella construct around him. And that's when it's revealed, like the one responsible for doing this is then revealed. Not to them, but to the reader. Because on Oa, a villain known as Muirden escapes from his cell, and Muirden is, the easiest way to explain Muirden is he is literally Mr. Mxyzptlk, but Green Lantern's version. He looks almost exactly the same, he just doesn't have a little hat. He has like the same kind of powers where he can literally do anything. The only difference is that Muirden's powers are different. He doesn't come from the fifth dimension. He just comes from like a magic world. It's probably retconned in the future for him to be like a member of the same race as like a fifth dimension person. Like they probably do retcon that eventually. I don't see why they wouldn't. But right now he comes from magic world. He gets his power called magic from Green Lantern power, because Green Lantern power was originally made of magic, like with like this thing called magic, and he would use that to do anything that he wants. But then the Guardians took the magic out of the Green Lantern power and put it into the Emerald Star or whatever it was called, which eventually became Alan Scott's ring was eventually forged from the magic. But it turns out Muirden somehow has more magic, which is impossible, because there's no way that any green power could have gotten to him on Oa, because none of the Green Lanterns are on Oa, they're on Earth, and the Green Lantern power can't reach that far. So, Hal Jordan, Drick from Crick, and Floronic Man actually come face to face with Muirden because he teleports to them, and he starts using his powers to make all the trees come to life and attack them. And Floronic Man's like, "These trees answer to the green, they're a part of the green, therefore they're a part of me, so I can control them." And he uses his powers to control the trees and get them to like turn against themselves and constrain themselves. And so Muirden just creates a bunch of giant lizards to attack them instead. One of them almost eats Floronic Man, but Hal just manages to save him in time. And Muirden then teleports away because he's done playing around with Hal and Floronic Man. And so it's revealed that he's gone to find John and Katma, where he's ginormous. He teleports there and he's just huge. And he tries to squash John, but John uses like his Green Lantern ring to like blast Muirden's foot. And then Katma creates a giant boxing glove to punch Muirden in the face. And so he vanishes after that. He's like, ah, shit, gotta get out of here. Boop, and disappears. And he appears in the baseball stadium that Gregorio, Aricia, and Kilowog are supposed to be in. But he realizes that they're not there. And he's like, where did they go? And it turns out that Kilowog and Aricia have gone to Oa, where they've discovered that Muirden, because Hal had sent them a transmission using his powers to tell them that Muirden had escaped. So they went to Oa to find out how, and they asked the prisoners on Oa, the other villains, like, how did he escape? And even they don't know how he escaped. So that it's a mystery. So they try to figure out how they escaped, and they talk about like what magic is and how it came from green power, everything I just explained. And it's like somebody used green power to get him out, and Kilowog suddenly realizes that he thinks he might know who sent Muirden green power to give him power back, and it was Sinestro. Sinestro has been communicating with Muirden from the moon, because Sinestro has enough ties to Green Lantern power that he still has a little bit, like, control over it a little bit. And he has already proven in the past that he can use, like, green power to, like, use mind control. So he was using using mind control and, like, talking through his mind. So he used, like, his mind powers to talk to Muirden, so that Muirden could come and set him free, and like sent the green power to him to give Muirden the power to come and set him free. So Muirden comes to the moon, sets Sinestro free, and then the Green Lantern Corps come to stop him. And even though Sinestro is 3, he doesn't have a yellow ring. Like, his yellow ring is not here, so he has no way of fighting them. So Muirden decides to try and keep them busy so that Sinestro can get away. And as he gets away, Aricia just grabs him and is like, oh, no you don't. And then Kilowog comes in and he's like, Gregorio's like, no, don't kill him. Like, you don't want to. And Kilowog's like, last time I didn't kill him, this happened. I'm not going to make that same mistake again. And he goes over to kill Sinestro, and Takeo's like, no, I'll take care of this. And Takeo just beats the crap out of Sinestro. He's like, I don't have my powers yet because I'm not fully awakened, but I can still beat the shit out of you. And he uses like karate, or like he uses like some kind of like martial arts against Sinestro and knocks him out. Because Takeo wants to actually be a Green Lantern. He's talked about that in the past. So he kind of sees it as doing his duty. He's like, I'm not a Green Lantern yet, but like, even if I'm not a Green Lantern, I can still beat the shit out of Sinestro. So they take Sinestro away to take him back to Oa so they can question him. And then the Green Lantern Corps decide to head off because they've got to go be a part of Millennium issue 8. Like, it literally ends with Hal being like, it's not over yet, we got some preparing to do for the Millennium because it's finally here. So let's go. And they fly off to Millennium issue 8, which we're not talking about yet because we got another tie-in. And this tie-in is an Infinity Inc. tie-in. And after this, we've got Millennium issue 8. As you know, Infinity Inc. last issue. Quick refresher on what happened. Todd, aka Obsidian, found out that his girlfriend, Marcy, was the new Harley Quinn. She like became the new Harley Quinn, and then she revealed that she was a Manhunter. And so she like went to be with the Manhunters. And as we saw in Millennium issue 7, she defected from the Manhunters again and ran off as they were all being destroyed. She's still a Manhunter, but like she ran away from the base as it was being destroyed, and all the Manhunters were being destroyed. At the end of the last issue of Infinity Inc., Dan Richards and and Molly, who was the original Harley Quinn, they ended up in a car crash, and we thought that they had died back then, but they didn't die. So Molly's in hospital, Dan managed to get out with minor injuries, and Infinity Inc. has brought Betty Clawman, who is the new Guardian from Australia. She's the Aborigine woman. They've all come to the hospital to see Molly and help her get better. One of her nurses is actually Beth, who is the current Dr. Midnight. You'd probably know her if you've seen the Stargirl show. There is a younger version of her character in that show. She becomes the new Dr. Midnight. So she's the one looking after Molly. So Infinity Inc. are visiting Molly, and Betty says that she might be able to help Molly with her, she's currently got a headache. She's like, I wish this headache could go away. And Betty's like, let me see if I can help. Because I should have, powers that have started to come from, what the Guardians have, from my rebirth. So, she puts her head on, Molly's hand, and it, she kind of heals Molly. It's unknown what Betty's powers are. Later on, we get an idea on, what Betty's powers are going to be as they manifest, because they do manifest in this. But I guess at the same time, she can heal. But that's not her main power. But she heals Molly's headache, and they talk about Harley Quinn, and Todd's just like, I'm so pissed off. I hate the fact that, Harley Quinn turned out to be a Manhunter, and Dan's like, and I'm the one responsible for what happened. My dog was an android the whole time, because his dog friend, his dog companion, turned out to be a Manhunter android. It's like, he was an android the whole time, and I'm the reason she became the new Harley Quinn. Man, I suck. It's all my fault. So, Infinity Inc. decide that, they're gonna leave Molly to, recuperate, because the nurses come in and they're like, hey, Molly needs to rest, so get out of here. And so, Infinity Inc. are like, alright, let's go. And they decide that they're going to take Betty back to Australia, because she needs to go and become reaccustomed with, the world and, where she grew up, because she's basically been reborn, so she isn't really accustomed to Australia anymore. So they're going to take her back to Australia so that she can, become one with her country again. And the members of Infinity Inc. that are actually going to be taking her to Australia are Yolanda, who is the new Wildcat, and then you've got, I think his name's Nuklon, who is, this character who has, the ability to, change his body and stuff. He can grow really big, he can change the density of his body to go through objects. That's as much as I know about him. He's got, super strength, stuff like that. He can just do different things with his body. And then you got Mr. Bones, who, as far as I know, he can't do anything except look like a skeleton and rhyme. He's kind of lame, in a good, in a fun way. He's a fun character. And then you got Owlman. And Owlman, if you've seen Stargirl, you know who Owlman is. And if you've seen, Legends of Tomorrow, he's this character who, he gets his powers, 1 hour at a time. So he has, powers for an hour, and then when it runs out, he doesn't have powers anymore. And his powers are just, super strength and agility, and that's it. He's not that great. He's probably one of the weakest of DC's heroes. And so they decide to take Betty to Australia. And meanwhile, Jade is actually, because in the last issue, Solomon Grundy, went crazy and tried to kill Floronic Man. And so Jade has shackled Solomon Grundy up. He's like, why are you shackling me up? Jade is like, because, it's not that I want to, it's just that, it's the only way to, stop you from going crazy again. And Solomon Grundy talks about how, the Green has been calling to him, that, this green was calling to him. Like, he doesn't know what the green is, but he said that something green has been calling to him. So this is kind of our hint that Solomon Grundy is connected to the green, just like Floronic Man is. And that I think this is the beginning of kind of a retcon, possibly, where Solomon Grundy's original origin was that he ended up being thrown in a swamp with toxic waste, and that made him Solomon Grundy. But I think this idea is that they're retconning that in the fact that, like, he still went into a swamp with toxic waste, but the toxic waste isn't what made him Solomon Grundy. It was that plus, like, he became a part of the green, and that's what made him Solomon Grundy, you know? Because he's connected to the green. Which makes sense. I think that's where I think that's where they're going. I don't know if they're actually going to get there. You never know with comic books. They retcon all the time, but I'm guessing he does become, like, connected to the green. It just makes so much sense for his character, because he's literally just, like, he's so similar. He's very similar to Swamp Thing. Like, he doesn't control plants and stuff, but, like, they have a lot of similarities in terms of, like, their character, you know? Like, Solomon Grundy is just a really stupid version of Swamp Thing. Like, he's just really dumb. That's, like, the main difference. So, Betty and her little crew head off to Australia. And when they get there, they find, like, this saloon. They go to, like, a town in the outback, and there are towns that are like this out there, but they don't look Western. Like, the town they go to is, like, cowboy Western town. Maybe they did back in the 80s? I don't know. They didn't look like that. They would have been, like, tin houses and stuff. Like, houses made out of, like, tin and stuff, like metal. But yeah, they go to a saloon. There probably are saloons out there. I don't know. I've never been out in the outback. I've just seen a lot of stuff of, like, you know, photos and things that people have shown me of when they've gone out there. But they head to this saloon, and while they're in there, Yolanda just starts, like, macking some guy. And Nucleon, who has kind of a thing with her, is like, hey, what the heck are you doing, Yolanda? Why are you kissing some random dude? And it's not just any random dude. It's this character called Tasmanian Devil. Because, of course, he's the Australian superhero, so he has to be based around an Australian thing. Kangaroo is already taken, so this guy's the Tasmanian Devil. And the best way to explain the Tasmanian Devil is that he is literally Wolverine if Wolverine was born in Australia. So it's like, this is literally just Hugh Jackman if Hugh Jackman just decided to put on a costume and be a superhero. And so, we don't actually get to ever see Tasmanian Devil's face. He doesn't have claws like Wolverine does. He has super strength, and that's as far as his powers are shown in this. But he has a thing with Yolanda. And they decide that, like, the Tasmanian Devil is going to be able to help them with finding and getting along with the Aborigines when they reunite Betty with them. So Tasmanian Devil's like, sure, I'll help you become acquainted with the Aborigines, especially because, you know, I live here, so I get along with them. You know? So they head out to Uluru, or some people know it as Ayers Rock, but Uluru is the name of the rock. It's funny because, like, at this point in time, you would have been allowed to, like, walk around and walk on Uluru, back in, like, the 80s, but now it's illegal. Like, you can't. You can go to Uluru and, like, look at it from a distance, but you're not allowed on it anymore because it's sacred, and walking on it has, like, eroded it, and they don't want people destroying it, and people were, like, littering and shit. It was really... It was awful, because people suck. So yeah, you're not allowed to, like, go on Uluru anymore. You just have to... They have, like, tours that, like, guide you around it, and so you can look at it, but you can't go on it. But they head to Uluru, where they meet all the Aborigines, and they just spend a lot of time with them. And Tasmanian Devil decides to try and put a show on for them, so he shows his powers. He can grow really big, and he like picks up a rock and then throws it at Nuklon, and Nuklon catches it, and then grows really big too. And then Owlman uses his power to pick up a rock and is like, hey, and they're like chucking it to each other and like putting on a show. And then Tasmanian Devil's like, hey, you like that? Then watch this. And he picks up an even bigger rock, and Nuklon's like, hey, chuck it at me, I'll catch it. And Tasmanian Devil's like, are you sure? Alright. And he throws it at Nuklon, and it crushes him. He's like, oh my god, I didn't mean to kill him. And then Nuklon like reaches through the rock, and that's when we find out that he has like density powers. And he comes through the rock and he's like, I'm fine, but man, that was a close one. And so they turn back to their normal size and they shake hands and they're like, alright, it's enough messing around. That was fun. And then Yolanda shows up and is like, hey, if you're all putting on a show, why didn't you call me? I'll give him a show. Because I'm Wildcat. And they're not really interested in watching her put on a show, because the Aborigines are like, they have like customs, and so like their whole thing is like there's like gender specific stuff. So like they see Yolanda as like a woman who is good for like farming and digging and like digging up like vegetables and things and doing like farm work because she's a woman. And Yolanda's just like, psh, whatever. And it's revealed that the Aborigines actually have a secret ceremony going on that they've invited Infinity Inc. to go to. And so most of them decide to go to the secret ceremony, but Yolanda's a little bit ignorant, and she's like, it's stupid. All that Hojo Mojo, I don't believe in any of that shit. So Betty's like, alright, if you don't want to go to the secret ceremony, why don't you come with me and we can have a look at Uluru and look at the paintings that are on Uluru. So Yolanda agrees, and she goes with Betty to Uluru to check out the special paintings, the special cave paintings and the rock paintings. And when they go to see them, and these paintings like represent Dreamtime, which is a it's not something I can explain because I feel like I wouldn't be able to explain it very well, but it's deeply seated in like Aboriginal history, and it is like it's like Aboriginals are a big part of their culture is storytelling. And Dreamtime is like a form of storytelling, and it's very, very, it's like a very sacred thing and a very important thing to their culture, of like passing stories from generation to generation is very important to them. That's kind of like, that's obviously not what Dreamtime is in a nutshell, but that's as far as I understand it, or like that kind of stuff in general. I just know that like it's a huge part of their culture, and they like pass stories from generation to generation, try to preserve these stories throughout generations, you know? It's very important. So they go to see these Dreamtime paintings, and while they're looking at them, Yolanda starts to think like, these paintings are starting to move, like these drawings are all coming at me, oh my god. And the drawings come to life and they all surround her, and then like she's like, ah, you're alive, and she's like screaming, and then Betty comes in and is like, no, it's okay, I've sent the paintings away. It seems I have control over Dreamtime drawings, like some kind of Dreamtime powers, because I'm the Aboriginal character, and of course my powers are related to my culture, because they couldn't come up with like something else. Like, it's fine to like have a character with powers related to their culture, but like at the same time it's like, did you really have to be like, oh, because Betty's the Aboriginal one, she has to have Dreamtime powers? She's the first Aboriginal superhero, she needs to have Dreamtime powers? Like, come on. Like, what's Takeo gonna have? He better not be a samurai. I think he's gonna become a Green Lantern. I don't know. It just seems like they're trying to do... Steve Englehart is trying to be good, but, like, it doesn't age very well when it comes to this kind of stuff, because it's just very stereotypical, you know? But Betty saves Yolanda from the drawings, and they reunite with Infinity Inc., where they decide to allow Betty to remain, like, to continue mingling with the other Aborigines and before they go back to the Green Lantern Citadel. Meanwhile, Todd, who is Obsidian, is sleeping, and Jade comes in on him because Jade is actually Todd's twin sister. She comes in, she's like, "Are you awake?" He's like, "I'm trying to sleep." It's like, "I just wanted to talk to you about, like, you know, what's been going on. You know, just want to make sure you weren't too depressed, you know, about Marcy." Todd's like, "Nah, in fact, since I met Raven," you know, and it's revealed, like, this is the point where it's revealed that, like, Todd and Raven are kind of, like, seeing each other, you know, which happened in a Teen Titans issue. So he's starting to move on from Marcy. He's like, "Can we talk about this in the morning? Like, I gotta sleep." And then Jade really weirdly comes onto him and, like, tries to make out with him, and she's like, "Whoa, what the fuck are you doing? You're my sister. This is disgusting." And it turns out that it's not Jade, it's actually Marcy disguising as herself as Jade. So Marcy is there, and Obsidian's just like, "What the fuck? Like, get out of here. Go." And he, like, slaps Harley Quinn. He's like, "Get out of here, you freak. What the fuck are you doing? You know, I'm gonna, I hate you so much that I'm going to torture you using my powers." And, like, he turns into Obsidian, and, like, he uses his powers of Obsidian to, like, use Marcy's fears against her to, like, torture her mind. But then he realizes that he's not actually holding onto Marcy, he's holding onto a pillow, because this is another trick from Marcy. She, like, created a hologram of herself that was actually a pillow. She pulls out a laser blaster and starts blasting Obsidian with, like, this light laser, because I guess because Obsidian is made out of shadows, light is his weakness. So she's blasted him, and Jade comes in and is like, "What the fuck are you doing? Get away from my brother." She punches Harley Quinn out, which allows, like, her to, like, drop the gun. And so Obsidian kind of, like, has an escape, you know? But Obsidian is, like, knocked out at the moment because he's weakened by this light. Harley Quinn straight up smacks Jade over the side of the head with, like, a lute. And then, which knocks her out. And then she goes to, like, shoot them with the gun, and then Dan comes in with his gun, and he's like, "No! I did this, I caused this, and if there's only one way to stop you, I'm willing to do it." She's like, "You can't stop me. You know? I'm a Manhunter." He's like, "Marcy, stop. Stop what you're doing. If the only thing that's gonna make you stop is killing me, then go ahead, do it. Like, kill me." And so she shoots him. She shoots Dan. Shoots him in the chest. And then it's after shooting him that Jade manages to, like, push Marcy over with her, like, Green Lantern hand power. And she creates, like, a hand construct to push her over. And she knocks her head on the side of a table, which then knocks the Harley Quinn glasses off. And Dan smashes them, and he's like, "These stupid glasses, they've ruined everything." So Marcy's been knocked out. And then Dan passes out and dies from the gun wound. he's like, Jade promised me, if when Marcy works up, promise me that you'll tell her that it's all my fault and that it's not her fault. Like, tell her I'm sorry, tell her it's my fault. Please. And then he dies. And then, like, it just ends with Dan's dead body, Marcy's been knocked out, Jade is just in the middle of them, crying her eyes out, and Todd is there keeping her company. And that's where it ends. That's the end of the Infinity Inc. Tie-in. It's rough. Pretty depressing towards the end. Yeah. I wouldn't say I would go and actually, like, definitely read all of Infinity Inc., but I definitely think that, like, it's one of those series that I would consider checking out just because I have enjoyed these past 2 issues of Infinity Inc. They've both been pretty good. And I kind of enjoy the characters. I enjoy reading about them, and I like how deep they get into it and stuff. And it's pretty dark. It's a pretty dark series as well, especially considering that most of the characters are pretty, like, colorful and jovial and stuff. But enough about that, because we're moving on to Millennium issue 8, the final issue of Millennium. It's been a long time coming, and we're here. But funny enough, it's not actually like the end of the Millennium event, because there's a couple of, like, tie-ins after Millennium issue 8 that tie up the Millennium story. So it's important for us to read those too, but for now, we're going to read Millennium issue 8, and then we'll cover the final 2 tie-ins. There's only 2 left after that. So obviously, Millennium issue 8 is written by Steve Englehart, with art by Joe Staton. Without further ado, let's get straight into Millennium Week 8. Alright, so we're going to get into the final issue of Millennium Week 8. What I didn't realize until I read this was that Week 7 was technically, like, the final issue when it came to, like, the Manhunters being defeated, because, like, that was it. The fight that they did in the Manhunters base in the core of the Earth, that was the final battle. And there are no battles with Manhunters in this issue. This issue is just, like, the creation of the new Guardians, and they finally get their powers, and that's this entire issue. So I don't think it's going to take us very long to get through this one. And then there are a couple of tie-ins that I'm going to go over pretty quickly, because they don't tie into the event all that much, and they just wrap up a couple of things, so I'll talk about that. So yeah, we're probably going to get done with this in, like, 20 minutes, tops. So, starting off Millennium Week 8, all of the heroes and new Guardians are gathered at the Green Lantern Corps Citadel, and Kilowog's like, alright, new Guardians, Harupa and Nadia are ready for you, to give you your powers. And so the new Guardians, which are Betty, Takeo, Jiang, Celia, Gregorio, Tom, and Floronic Man, which is always weird, you know, pointing out that he's a part of the team, are going to get their powers. Guardian Harupa and Nadia give a bit of their speech, and they're like, you know, for a millennia we've been going against restriction. You know, 3 billion years ago, or like 5 billion years ago, or like 3.5 billion years ago, we went against restriction when we created the Manhunters. And we did it wrong. 3 billion years ago, we went against restriction again when we created the Green Lantern Corps. And that time it succeeded. And now, for the third and final time, I should do this in like a Guardian voice. For the third and final time, we will go against restriction again. By creating you, the new Guardians. And so, the Harupa is like, alright, who's going to come up first and get your powers? Jiang? Hey, why don't you come over and I'll give you your powers? And Jiang is like, okay, I'll take the lead. I'll be the first one. So Jiang comes up, and Harupa and Nadia are like, put their hands on them, and they're like, yes, won't sting a bit. They're both really old at this point. Like, even Nadia originally, like, the Guardians always looked old, but, like, the Zamorans have always looked like women that I would say would be in, like, their prime, you know? So, like, their 30s. Or, like, maybe perhaps even older than that, you know? It's really hard to tell when it comes to comic art, but if I was to guess, like, what the age of a Zamoran would look like, it would be in, like, their mid-30s. And just really, really strong and powerful. So Jiang comes up, and they touch her, and their minds all meld together, and Jiang transforms completely and becomes a completely different person. She becomes Gloss. That is her superhero name. And Gloss, because they're introducing these new superheroes, they introduce, like, how they look, and then right afterward, the character then goes, and these are my powers, so that people reading know what they can do. So she becomes Gloss, and Gloss has control over Feng Shui, like the Feng Shui energy. That's as much as I can tell. She has control over, like, energy. Feng Shui. That's how she explains it. Like, clarity. I don't know. That's her power. And everyone's like, oh my god, she looks completely different. And Betty points out that she speaks of the Chinese as something separate. So she's like, oh, Glass is no longer a part of their world. She's a part of, like, everything now. Different parts of the world can sense, like, throughout this issue, there are, like, different parts of the world all reacting to, like, these new heroes being created. Like, the people in Olympus are seeing it happen. These, like, it's like the Parliament of Trees, which are, like, the overseers of the green, who, like, create order and stuff in the green, within the green. They recognize Floronic Man as being, like, one of them. Or, like, they recognize him, and Floronic Man's like, oh my god! Like, the Parliament of Trees have recognized me! So the Guardian's like, Takeo, you are next! And Takeo comes up, and this is where you imagine, oh, like, are they gonna go the stereotypical route? Like, are they gonna tie it to, like, his culture or something, which isn't a bad thing. Like, it's not that you can't do that. It's just, like, it's predictable. I guess back in the 80s it wasn't, but, like, it's starting to become predictable now of, like, you don't want these characters to be typecasted into their, like, races and, like, their cultures, you know? But that's kind of what happens with all of these characters. It's like all of them become, like, their powers are all related to their culture, which, again, isn't a bad thing. It's just kind of like, yeah, but couldn't, like, one of them have, like, a power that wasn't, you know? Like, can't one of them just have cool powers? But luckily Takeo doesn't become, like, a samurai or a ninja or anything. Instead he becomes Ram, who is a guy that's made out of computers. And he has control over computers. His computers are one with his mind. And at first I was like, oh, like, they didn't go the stereotypical route. But then, like, it is a stereotype that, like, Japanese people are really smart and really good with computers. And I was like, I hope that's not why they made him the guy that controls computers. Like, I really hope so. Like, I hope that this was just them being like, let's give him a cool power, he has control over computers, and not the other thing, because, again, but people have said, like, Millennium hasn't aged very well, and so I'm starting to think, like, maybe this is what they were referring to, where, like, all of their powers are like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a stereotype, but whatever. So Darkseid senses this, like, all of the people in the fourth world can sense this, these transformations, and then the Guardian is like, okay, Gregorio, you come up next. And Gregorio's transformation is, I'm gonna call this out, because this is bullshit. Gregorio's transformation is, he literally just becomes Doctor Strange. Except he's called Extrano, which in Spanish means strange. Like, they straight up were just like, he's just gonna be Doctor Strange. What are his powers? He's a witch. Specifically a witch. He describes himself as a witch, not a wizard, a witch. But he's literally just Doctor Strange. He's even got a cape that looks a lot like Doctor Strange's. And I was like, really? You're just gonna blatantly, like, rip off Marvel and not even, like, try to make it not a clear rip-off? Like, you're even gonna call them Strange? It's like, it's not copying, because it's the Spanish way of spelling strange, but it's still Strange. Not Doctor Strange, just Strange. But, like, I was like, really? You're just gonna do that to this guy? Instead of making him, like, a unique hero, he's just gonna be a rip-off of Doctor Strange? Like, come on. There is one funny thing that comes out of this, and it's Phantom Stranger. He senses Extrano's creation and is like, oh, another guy called Strange. Or, like, Strange in his last name. That's awesome. I was the only strange being in the universe, and now I'm not alone. At this point, the Guardian and Nadia, like, Harupa and Nadia are, like, almost dying, because every single time that they give somebody powers, they become more and more, like, they become older and older, and they, like, become all decrepit, and they're about to die. They call forth Betty, and, like, you think Gregorio got, like, the bad end of the stick, but, like, at least he gets to become a superhero. God, I hate what they did to Betty. Because I like Betty. Out of all the characters, she's probably the one that's just, like, the nicest, you know? The easiest to like. And she gets the bad end of the stick. Like, I feel so bad for this character. It's like they just did not give a shit about this character because of the power that they gave her. Everyone else gets to become a superhero. What does Betty get to become? She just gets to become a part of Extrano. She gets sucked into the ground and becomes a part of the Earth. But, like, she's within Extrano's body and she is his connection to the Earth. That's literally what happens to Betty. It's so fucking stupid. I'm like, can't she be her own hero? Why does she have to be inside him? And why do they have to say it that way? Why did they have to have Gregorio be like, she's inside me? Like, come on. You can't be that stupid while writing this, of being, like, not realizing how weird this is. The way it's written, of being like, oh, Betty, who looks like a young girl, by the way. She looks younger than Extrano, like Gregorio, and Gregorio's like, oh yeah, this girl is inside me. It's like, come on. Like, bro. There's this panel of her being sucked into the ground, and it's like nightmare fuel. I hate it. I just hate how Betty looks after she transforms. She becomes this weird sun-looking thing. I fucking hate it. Nightmare fuel. God damn it. Rip Betty. You were the best character, and you got... seriously, like, you got fucked over by the Guardians. She would have been better off just not being a new Guardian, in my opinion. They really gave her the short end of the stick. Next up, we got Celia Winward. And they were like, oh yeah, we made Betty a part of the Earth. But she's stuck inside Gregorio, I guess. But you get to be a superhero. You know, fuck Betty, you get to be a hero, Celia. We're gonna give you powers, you get to be your own hero. And they transform her into Jet, who has the ability to fly using electromagnetism, and she can use, sound. She can, create sound blasts. And she kind of looks like, when I first saw her design, I thought that she was originally Jinx, because she kind of looks like Jinx. Not the cartoon version, the actual comic version. She looks like Jinx, except she's got, flames coming out of her head. I even thought, her costume kind of looks like something Jinx would wear. You know? But she's not Jinx. She's Jet. And yeah, that's it. That's all the transformations of the characters. She becomes Jet, and then Harupa and Nadia are going to give Floronic Man powers, but Floronic Man's just like, hey yo, I already have my own powers. I'm a part of the green. I've got plant powers. You don't need to give me plant powers. Don't waste your power on me. Because I guess the writers were like, oh shit, Floronic Man does have powers. What is he even gonna become? He's already gone through a transformation. And so they turn to Thomas Kalmaku, and they're like, it's your turn, Tom. And Tom's like, I'm sorry, but the editors really screwed me over, and I don't get to be a character in this new in this new series that they're making, because I'm Thomas Kalmaku and no one gives a shit about me, even though, I'm a cool character, and, I like Thomas Kalmaku, and I was really upset when they decided to have Thomas just be like, sorry, I don't want to be a member. I don't want powers. I'm like, really? Come on. Throw him a bone. I swear the editors do not like Thomas Kalmaku at this point. Because after this, we don't see him again for a long time. Maybe he shows up in New Guardians as a guest character, but he sure as fuck doesn't show up in Green Lantern, because I'm reading the 90s Green Lantern, I'm reading Volume 3, and he hasn't showed up once. I think he's been referenced once. But, Gerard Jones hasn't used him at all. And it just pisses me off that they're just and Thomas Kalmaku is not gonna be a member of the New Guardians. He's not gonna get powers. He's still just gonna be Thomas. He's gonna be a regular dude. He's gonna stay with his family. And it's bullshit. You can't have me follow this character for 30 years worth of history and then have him be one of the main characters in this miniseries, this giant event, and then not have it end with him getting powers and actually being something more than just a regular dude. Come on, he deserves it. He deserves to have superpowers. It just pisses me off that they really, dropped the ball on this one. But yeah, Thomas is like, no thank you, I'm not going to be a member of the New Guardians. And Hal's like, really? We talked about this. Come on, Thomas, I'm going to make you feel real bad for not joining the New Guardians because I'm a dick. I like Hal, but, he can be a real dick sometimes. And they're like, come on, Hal, eased off him. He made his decision. He doesn't want to be a New Guardian. And Hal's like, alright. Whatever. Cool. He even tries to, this tries to be a bit of a moment with Hal, where Hal's just like, Thomas, you've been my friend for a really long time. I love you. You're my best friend. So whatever you want, I'm gonna stand by you. And, you'll always be a hero in my eyes. And that would have been great. That would have been really good. That would have been a great little speech. But why did... I don't know why he had to do it, but Steve Englehart had Hal refer to Thomas as Pie Face again. Like, why? Why would you have him refer to Thomas as his, like, to his, like, racist nickname that he had, because racism was very, like, even a lot more prominent back in the 50s or the 60s when Thomas was created, so it was normal to just give them characters racist nicknames. Like, why would you do that? It takes a, like, that just makes Hal seem like a fucking dick of just being like, hey, I'm gonna use the slur of a nickname that you had all those years ago that you've been trying to get away from. It's why, you got rid of the nickname. You literally said how, like, I called you Pie Face once, and you were literally like, don't call me Pie Face anymore. I'm Thomas. I'm better than that nickname. And now I'm calling you that because I'm a dick, or because Steve Englehart is a dick and just doesn't care, or doesn't know that it's racist. I don't know. It's like, really? It pissed me off when I read that. It pissed me off when Hal called him Pie Face. I was like, first of all, Hal would not have called him that because Thomas is his best friend. Thomas asked him not to, and Hal would have listened to him. It's like, bro, why? But yeah, that's my little rant. That's my little rant. I just got so pissed off. I was like, really? We're doing that? You're gonna call him the racist? You're gonna call him Pie Face? Like, come on. Leave it in the past. And so, Thomas just decides not to become a member of the New Guardians. And so the New Guardians turn to Harbinger and they're like, well, we've got a place for you. Since Thomas doesn't want to join us, do you want to become a member? And Harbinger's like, I'm sorry, but, like, I just don't think I can be a member of the New Guardians because, first of all, I feel like I've betrayed you all. Second of all, I feel like, I still don't even really know what my purpose is. I just don't think it is being a member of the New Guardians. I've got to go off and I've got to do my own thing for a bit and figure out what my true purpose is, what I'm going to do. And so she flies away. And then the Guardian and Nadia are literally like, Harupa and Nadia are like, oh shit, well, since she didn't join, hey Thomas, fuck you. I know you said you didn't want to be a superhero with superpowers, but like, here you go. We gave you powers, but the readers aren't gonna see what your powers are, and it's up to you if you decide to want to use your powers. Like, they're within you, and they'll come out if you need them. But like, it depends on whether or not whoever's writing Green Lantern wants to do anything with that. You know, so like Thomas, he has powers. He's got powers, but like, it just depends on whether or not the editors want him to have powers or not. So yeah, he's got powers, but fuck, no, he doesn't have powers. Or maybe he does. I swear, if he actually shows up later on and he actually uses his powers, I will be shocked. Because I don't think that's going to happen. I think they just did this to make readers be like, oh, okay, he's got powers. Cool. So yeah, Thomas and his invisible powers are like, okay, cool. Alright, I'll, if the New Guardians ever need my help, let me know. And I'll help with these powers that I have. We don't even know what his powers are. But he's got powers. Because he said so. And meanwhile, in South Africa, they call it Darkest Africa, because this is the evil part of Africa, where the evil part of South Africa, where that racist white guy, South African dude, he's there, and he's like, I'm gonna get revenge against the New Guardians for trying to change everything, because I'm against change. So it's time for war. The war against change. And so he announces that he's going to be the main villain of the New Guardians comic. That's basically what he's just done. He's like, I'm going to be the main villain of the New Guardians spin-off, and no one can stop me. And so after that, after they gave Thomas his secret powers, Harupa and Nadia die. of old age. They just say, and they die. And Hal's just like, no! No! It's kind of sad, because, like, Hal is, like, been around these Guardians for, like, years. You know. And this is the first time he's ever seen one, like, just die, I think. I think this is the first time he's seen one die. Probably, like this. So it's very heart-wrenching for him. Especially because, like, yeah, they became friends. They've known each other for the entirety of this Millennium event. Arisia's a bit cold about it. She's like, they served their purpose, Hal. And they died. Like, that's just what was going to happen. So, move on. Let's move on, alright? Chop chop. It's enough crying. No time to cry. I have no soul. And, so the heroes of Earth, after Nadia and Haruba have died, bid farewell to the new Guardians and wish them luck in their journey to becoming heroes. And then all the heroes of Earth, I'm not going to name them all because that would take forever, but they all fly off to go and do their thing and go back to their separate lives and announce that the Millennium event is over. Except it's not, because there's a couple of things we gotta wrap up. Whoa. And then that's it. That's the end of Millennium Week 8. Probably the weakest issue of all of them, because it's literally just like a, hey, here's all the new heroes, these are their powers. Some are good, some are okay. I don't think any of them are that great. In my honest opinion, I don't think that any of the new Guardians seem that interesting in terms of their powers. I think they really dropped the ball on their powers, especially when it came to Betty, which was bullshit. And then giving Thomas secret powers, which is also fucking bullshit. I hate that. And then also just, like, having Floronic Man be there, and, like, at least that was kind of funny, of, like, Floronic Man just being like, I already have powers, so you don't have to worry about me. But yeah, that was Millennium Week 8. And I would say that was the end of the Millennium event, but it's not. There's a bit of a wrapping up in another tie-in. There's actually 2 tie-ins after this, but I'm only going to go over one of them because I read one of them and I was like, how has this got anything to do with Millennium? Like, who approved this list of tie-ins for this event? Because this issue of Spectre, it's a good issue, but it has nothing to do with Millennium at all, and so I'm not going to go over it. I think they mention, like, the Manhunters having been in the swamp at the very beginning of the story, and then that's it. That's the only reference to the Manhunters. So instead, we're going to talk about the Teen Titans Spotlight Starfire issue. We're not going to talk about the whole thing. We're just going to talk about all of the things that are that tie into Millennium and tie it up. This whole issue is about, like, Starfire fawning over Nightwing, because that was her entire character back then, was that she's just like, I'm in love with Nightwing, and that's just who I am, and that's my whole thing. And I care about my home planet, and I got, like, an evil sister and stuff like that. But, like, yeah, I'm all about that dick. So she's flying around the city being like, wee, I feel great, I love Dick. I love Dick so much. And she's, like, flying through the sky. And meanwhile, Harbinger, like, she's, like, flying around the city like, wee, like, yay, I love being a superhero. And meanwhile, Harbinger is meeting with the new Guardians, and she's saying for the final time that she's just doesn't think that she can be a member of them. She's like, I appreciate the invitation, but I've got to figure it, like, I just feel like I betrayed you, and so I feel like I don't even deserve a spot on the new Guardians, and that's why I decided not to join you. That's why I decided against it. And so the new Guardians are like, okay, like there's always going to be a spot on here for you, but if that's what you want, then that's fine. Like we'll stop bothering you. And so Harbinger then decides to leave, and the new Guardians go their separate ways as well. Or they go off as a group, but Harbinger is like, I'm happy being on my own, and I just don't deserve to be a member of the new Guardians. She talks about how she kind of just wants to live a normal life. She wants to give up being the Harbinger and just go back to living a normal life, because she feels like that's just what she wants, you know? But she questions the fact of, like, how am I going to do that? Like, I was made for one purpose, which was to protect the Earth. How am I going to do that if what I want is to just be normal? You know, I don't even know if I can be normal. And so while she's contemplating her own existence, the last group of Manhunters on Earth that survived, somehow, they find her because they've tracked her down, and they attack Harbinger. They try to kill her. Well, they try to capture her, like recapture her. But she fights back, and Starfire sees her and realizes that the Manhunters are oh, that's right. No, she doesn't see Harbinger. She sees a copy of Harbinger. Sorry. Harbinger created a copy of herself and sent it off to see if somebody would see the copy and know that she's in trouble. So Starfire sees the copy flying through the sky and deduces that something's off about it, and realizes that it might be a copy of Harbinger and that she should follow it because she reckons it might be taking her back to the real Harbinger. So she follows the copy and finds Harbinger fighting the Manhunters. And so she joins in on the fight, fights the Manhunters alongside Harbinger. They have a massive fight, and they come out on top. And they beat the Manhunters. And that's when Starfire and Harbinger have a bit of a chat. And Starfire convinces Harbinger to reconsider joining the New Guardians and, like, being a hero of Earth. Because since she has no given purpose anymore, her purpose can be whatever she wants it to be. And that she shouldn't let her fear of, like, the betrayal that she caused stop her from becoming a hero and doing what she feels like, doing what she deserves to be able to do. Like, she deserves to be a hero. She's allowed to be a hero. And so she basically gives Harbinger the confidence that she needs in herself to become a hero of Earth and a member of the New Guardians. But their little happy conversation doesn't last very long, because a Manhunter shows up, the final one shows up and attacks them, but Harbinger manages to blast it enough to cause it to explode, therefore destroying all of the Manhunters forever, or until, you know, someone decides to bring them back. Probably Jeff Johns, maybe, or Gerard Jones. I don't know, I haven't gotten far enough in Volume 3 of Green Lantern, but I'm guessing that the Manhunters will probably come back soon. But until then, they are dead forever. And so Starfire and Harbinger bid farewell. Harbinger thanks Starfire for helping her decide what she wants to do with her life. Starfire is like, that's what I do. I just like helping people. And so Harbinger heads off and reunites with the New Guardians, where she becomes a member of the New Guardians. And I think she becomes their leader. And the New Guardians are all like, yay, Harbinger joined us, yeah, grab the popcorn, screw Thomas, he's not a member, screw him, but yay, Harbinger, woo! And then Starfire heads back home and grabs a picture of Dick and hugs it. She loves hugging that picture of Dick. But yeah, she's literally like, oh, Dick, I love you so much. Can't wait to find out how you spent your day. Like, she's obsessed with him, and it's kind of sad. Like, why was she written this way back then? And why did people like, I'm guessing people liked it because, like, New Titans and New Teen Titans was really popular. I guess it was just different times back then where people didn't really question how, like, female characters were written. You know, they didn't expect a lot out of them, which is sad, you know. But whatever. I'm sure she probably goes through, like, a lot of character development. But yeah, that was, I'm sure somebody comes along and goes like, alright, she's not obsessed with Dick anymore. You know, she loves him, but, like, she's also an actual character now. But yeah, that was it. And with that, that is the end of Millennium. We've done the whole thing. It was a long journey, a lot of tie-ins, a lot of ups and downs, mostly ups, surprisingly. I would love to say that there were more downs than ups, but I would say overall this series had more highs than it did lows. There was only a couple of tie-ins that I despised, probably like 3 tie-ins. I don't know if I despised the Young All-Star ones. They were just kind of boring, but I did not like the Firestorm ones very much at all. But yeah, like, it wasn't bad. Like, it was alright. I would say, like, all of the interesting stuff happened in the tie-ins. I would say out of all of this, the main Millennium series was probably the worst part overall in terms of story, because they didn't really serve as like a vehicle for story. They were just kind of like the bridges between the actual parts of the story, which were in the tie-ins, except for issue 7 of Millennium, which was the final battle. But even that didn't feel like super grandiose. So I'd say overall, if I was to give Millennium a rating in terms of like how I think it is, I would say 6.5 out of 10 over the whole thing, which isn't bad. I'd say that's just like it's all right. You know, it's nothing crazy, but not terrible. You know, not bad, not amazing, just like all right. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode of the Marvel and DC Retrospective Podcast. Next week, we're going to be going through some Flash issues. And then I think after that, because there's another event coming up, which is Invasion, and there is a Flash tie-in to that, a couple of Flash tie-ins. And obviously I will be covering all of Invasion plus its tie-ins because they are important to the overall story. Lana! Sorry, my cat is fucking around with stuff that it shouldn't be. So we'll be doing all of Invasion because it's another one of those events where, like Millennium, a lot of stuff happens in the tie-ins, and if you don't read them, you miss out on a lot of the story, including the ending. And because it's a massive event, and it's not going to be long before we have to do that, I might take, I might do the Flash up until the Invasion tie-in, and then after that, maybe I'll take a week, like a break, like for a week, just so I can rest, because I feel like if I do another, 45 issue event, I might get really burnt out reading comics, and I don't want that to happen, because I love reading comic books. I love talking about this shit. But I feel like even I could get burnt out on this kind of stuff. Like, I'm surprised I didn't get burnt out doing Millennium. I'm surprised I didn't take, any kind of break. I've been reading it every day. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. And I'll see you next week, where we'll start reading The Flash again and doing more Flash stuff. So, I'm Kay Chamberlain, and this has been Millennium. Have a good one.